Welcome to Session 3 of the APA's versus Hate Conference, A Call to Action. I'm Shinhang Byun, a board member of Cal-APABA, and I have the honor of introducing our panelists today. Before I do that, the Cal-APABA board members would like to recognize our sponsors who have been very generous with their sponsorship of these series and the AAPI community. Thank you to Davis Wright Tremaine, Hanson Bridget, Procopio, Squire Patton Boggs, Wilkie Farr Gallagher, Zathrina Perez, and donations from the Iranian American Bar Association of Northern California, ORIC, and our individual donors. We also thank our 28 community co-sponsors for their support and allyship. If you are a lawyer and interested in serving as a referral for victims of hate incidents or hate crimes, please sign up at bit.ly/APAs versus hate. Today's panel is focused on the call to action. What and how are the different ways that we can confront the rising hate crimes against our Asian American communities? Today's moderator is our fierce leader, Cindy Liu, who is a Cal-APABA board member. She is an attorney practicing in Sacramento at the California Department of Managed Healthcare and is past president of the Asian Pacific Bar Association of Sacramento. Our first panelist is Annie Esposito, who is a co-founder of the Asian American Prosecutors Association. Annie is a deputy district attorney at the Alameda County DA's office, where she has served for 21 years. She has been at the forefront of building community and advocacy policy for the Asian American community in the Greater Bay Area. Our second panelist is Greg DeGier, who has been a lifelong civil rights advocate in California. Greg is a former longtime staff member for California legislative members and now volunteers his efforts in mobilizing organizations and advocating for legislation that will combat hate crimes. Our third panelist is Jessica O. Young, who is a co-founder of a volunteer organization, Compassion in Oakland, which mobilized very quickly to help Chinatown's elderly walk the city in safety. Jessica is also a counselor for students with disabilities when not volunteering for Compassion in Oakland. With that, I'll give the floor to Cindy Liu.
Thank you, Shinhong. Happy birthday. Thank you to our esteemed panelists for joining us today, and welcome to all of you watching. On March 16th, 2021, Stop AAPI Hate published its national report, which stated there were 3,795 hate incidents reported between March 19th, 2020 through February 28th, 2021. We know there is a severe underreporting, and these are just a fraction of the true total. As more and more incidents are reported in the media over the last few months, people have been asking how they can help, what they can do. We hope this panel will shed some light on what folks in the community are doing and what each of us can do to help. Annie, let's start with you. In response to the increase of anti-Asian hate crimes in Oakland, I understand that in February, your office created a special response unit focused on crimes against Asians. Can you please tell us about that?
Sure. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here. So in February, in response to the surge of attacks against Asian members of our community, particularly the elderly, our district attorney, Nancy O'Malley, had formed a special response team and asked me to head the team. In so doing, what we did was we also brought into this special response team several units and several teams from the DA's office. We included members from the Special Prosecutions Unit. We also included members, meaning attorneys, district attorneys, and victim witness advocates, and inspectors. So they are included from the Special the Special Prosecutions Unit, and the Elderly Protections Unit. And what we do is we are, as part of this, first of all, we keep track of all the reported instances of violent attacks against API victims. Some and many of these instances actually do not have perpetrators yet arrested or charged. And certainly if they are charged, then I will be responsible assigning them to either the Special Prosecutions Unit or to the Elder Abuse Unit, so that we would have hands-on, immediate response to the victims and to the victims' families. Where there is no perpetrators actually arrested or charged, the unit as a whole, including the victim witness advocates and inspectors, we try to reach out to the victims if they would like services. We'll provide services through our Family Justice Center, and it's a wraparound services that we will provide them with counseling, with help in terms of trying to obtain any kind of victim compensation, and with other mental health services that they may need. And also, it's vitally important and critical that the victims are contacted as soon as possible so that they are not feeling alone in this situation. Sometimes they may not want to talk to the police, which we understand, but we're there to provide, mainly to provide the services and provide any answers that they may have or questions that they may have. So that's first and foremost. In addition to this, we also provide training on the law of hate crime for predominantly to law enforcement. Hate crime under the law in the penal section, and the relevant sections are 422.55, which is where it's defined, and also the relevant enhancements are under 422.7. There are very specific elements to the crime that we have to prove before it can be charged and ultimately convicted as a hate crime. And so some of the training that we provide will be to the officers on what to look for, what kind of evidence to look for, and what to focus on if you're investigating the case as a hate crime. Then we also do community outreach, meaning that we're trying to get the word out that if the district attorney's office has a hate crime hotline, and it's 24 hours, and we're trying to get the word out about the services that we provide to the community. And these posters look something like this. I'm not sure if anybody can see it, but we give it to various businesses in different languages. They're in English, they're in Chinese, they're in Arabic, they're in Vietnamese. And so what we do is, for instance, the city of Dublin and the city of Oakland have requested these posters, and the posters are provided to businesses. And the businesses that they feel, if they agree, they will post these posters in the businesses so that should anyone need the services of our office, they know how to contact us. And that's a critical aspect of our team, that what we do. And in addition to members of our team, we include people in our team who are multilingual. And so it is vitally important that we are able to communicate with victims and victims' families who English may not be their primary language. And so those are some of the things that we have been doing since the team was formed. We've also reached out to provide, when we contact community leaders, we meet with them. I know in Oakland, there's the Asian Advisory Committee on Crime, and they meet about twice a month, and they often would like to have members of our team to meet with them to give them some updates on what is happening. And also, last night, I went out to a rally, a Stop Asian Hate rally in Alameda, and to discuss with the student organizers on what is a hate crime, and to reassure some of the students there who were actually been harassed for some racist incidents, and discussing with them and giving them some support that hopefully that they feel that they receive. So it's been very busy.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like it. Thank you for all of the good work that your office is doing to address this issue. Next, we'll move on to Greg. Greg, can you please tell us about your efforts in the legislature and about any bills that you are working on right now?
Sure. I'll tell you a little bit about the ARC. The ARC is a national organization made up of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families, friends, and service providers. Has a broad agenda supporting that community. A big part of it is the public safety part. They've been working for longer than I've been with them on these issues, and I think that's one of the reasons they hired me as their public affairs director, and to work on that in addition to the rest of their agenda. I'm retired now, and so I'm able to put in something approaching full time on these kinds of issues. I'll save the discussion of particular bills for the second part, because I'm going to be suggesting, since this is a call to action day, suggesting things you can do. But in general, we advocate for bills and administrative actions that have to do with the hate crimes in general. We realize that the disability community alone couldn't accomplish very much. So in coalition and in alliance with other groups, we've been able to accomplish quite a bit over the years. And I coordinate the statewide network of organizations that are working together on this.
Great, thank you. And we do look forward to hearing what you have to say about what people can do to help you and your organization. Next, Jessica, can you please tell us about your organization, Compassion in Oakland?
Yeah, hi, thank you so much for having me here today. Compassion in Oakland is really a newly formed organization in just, honestly, now let's see, a month and a half ago. So we just started a month and a half ago. Our purpose is to essentially partner volunteers to walk any elderly, particularly Asian elderly individuals, if they're feeling unsafe. So we'll partner volunteers with them, and they'll meet them to go to the grocery store, go to the bank, go to the park, wherever they need to go, just so that they can feel safe. Since we started, we've had over 1,200 people sign up to volunteer. So we have a lot of people coming out, and it's been really great to see people wanting to take action. But we've also been finding that it's not just about walking our elderly. It's also letting them know that we see them and that we understand that there's fear for them to walk around and do their daily lives. And a lot of them haven't been out because of COVID. So a lot of the elderly are coming out for the first time, and they're scared because they haven't been out for a very long time. And then two, they're scared. They're even more scared because of the attacks that are happening. So our volunteers are really providing a safe space for them. And it's been really great to see. We've also been learning a lot about what their needs are and helping them report crimes and report any kind of, it doesn't have to be a hate crime either, but hate crime and, any kind of criminal action that's been happening to them. Because a lot of the elderly have to do that online and a lot of them can't navigate the computer. So we help them to navigate the computer. Also, sometimes it's all in English. So we help them to translate those items and make sure that their crimes are reported.
That's great, Jessica. Can you tell us how you got 1,200 people to volunteer in a month and a half? That's amazing.
I wish I could tell you. It is amazing. It's honestly social media. We started so to give a little background about how we started is we started because of social media post. So a gentleman named Jacob Azevedo, he posted on his Instagram that to offering himself and to walk with anybody that was feeling unsafe. And he had hundreds of responses and it went viral. And so myself and a few other people also responded, said, hey, we're able to help you, organize all these people. And it just pretty much spiraled and people kept reposting about what we're doing. And it's been amazing to see people just react and respond.
Okay, so yeah, no, that is quite remarkable how social media has just changed so much for us, right, in getting the word out. So right now, speaking of social media, people are posting on social media and donating on to these wonderful organizations that are raising awareness, they're tracking hate crimes. But how else can we contribute? How can we, not just attorneys, but how can anyone support your organizations and efforts?
Who do you want to start?
Anybody can start. We're just going to open this up to the panelists.
Well, I'm willing to start. Funny you should ask. I just, by coincidence, happen to have some slides on exactly that subject. You want to put up the first one? If they work. Is there any way to make it a little like that or good? Okay. Locally, these are the suggestions I've been able to come up with, and they have to do with the law enforcement side of the problem, which is certainly not the only side, but it's what I've been working on. And the first goes far beyond just the law enforcement. Continue to ask your local leaders, your mayors, your police chiefs, your DAs, community leaders of all sorts, to speak up. That actually makes a difference. That those who've studied social movements will tell you that in the long run, the government actions, the public policy is important. But if we don't make a social change by making it socially unacceptable to do things, we will never get as far as we have to go. So continue to work on that. Getting more specific. You can ask your police chiefs and sheriffs to train all their officers using the existing training program that POST, the State Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, has. The advantage of this is something they can do immediately. It's on the POST portal, learning portal. A police chief or a sheriff could order it tomorrow, and it would have two effects. One is by alerting all the officers in her or his department that this training is coming, even if they haven't had the training yet. It will raise their consciousness that they should be paying attention to this. And secondly, the training is pretty good. Once they get it, over the course of whatever time it takes to train them, it will improve their response to hate crimes. I'm added to ask them to use the training as updated in August 2020. A lot of officers had training before that. They should be retrained now, because the 2020 retraining, the 2020 update includes information from the 2018 bill by Assemblymember Ting that specifically on how to recognize hate crimes. That the problem of officers not recognizing hate crime when they see it is widespread. We got a audit a few years ago by the state auditor that evaluated law enforcement and found that failure to recognize hate crimes is a big problem. It's not universal. Law enforcement has been improving. In some places they're better than others, but it remains a problem. And this training is one way to go after it. A big way to go after it. I would suggest that you get together, ask your police chiefs and sheriffs to order this training. It's the Post Hate Crimes training. It's on the Post learning portal. Your police chief and sheriff will know exactly what Post is, and that they start with the officers who have not had training at all, had this training at all, and then proceed to the ones who've had it before the update. Third, you can ask the same people, the chiefs and sheriffs, to adopt the Post Model Hate Crimes policy. The bill that Mr. Ting passed in 2018 upgraded the policy that Post developed and that law enforcement agencies can adopt, guiding their officers. It goes into a lot of detail about how to respond properly, how to support the victims, how to report, how to gather evidence. It's a good policy. It could be better, and we've got a bill to make it better. We can talk about that later. But if we can get every law enforcement agency in the state, or any law enforcement agency that we can get to adopt it, will be positive. You probably will get the response from them, oh, we already have a hate crimes policy, because most law enforcement agencies do. 90% of the agencies in California use the policy developed by Lexipol. Lexipol is a private business that law enforcement agencies pay to develop policies for them, and they have a standard policy that they give to law enforcement agencies, and most of them have adopted it. It's okay. It's better than nothing, but it's not as good as the Post policy. So you can tell the chiefs if they don't know that instead of paying for a less good policy, they can get the free from Post, the better policy. I would suggest that you also ask them not simply to adopt the Post policy word for word. It's going to take a little adapting anyway, but they consult your community and do that. Ask people what they want cops to do when they show up at the scene of a crime, a potential hate crime, and they bring together not only your community but the other communities that are likely to be targeted for hate crimes. Then the final thing, again, this is with law enforcement, ask the police chiefs and sheriffs to meet with you regularly, monthly, quarterly, to find out what they're doing, to hear from you about what they should be doing. So those are four things you can do. The question comes up with all of them, with each of them. Is this something that you want to do as the API community, get a few or a lot of API groups together to go talk to them? Or is it something you want to take more time and develop a larger coalition of Black, Jewish, Latino, gay, whatnot groups to all go together? That's a good question, and I can't tell you the specific answer. I can tell you what my idea is. For the first two, asking your leaders to speak out and asking your chiefs and sheriffs to order the training, I think it might be best to move quickly, get the APA groups together to make those asks. The reason I suggest that is those are both immediate urgent things that the chiefs and sheriffs can do today if they choose to. And giving your community, and they're both, I won't say easy. None of this is easy, but they're easier than the ones that follow, the steps that follow. I think you're more likely to have some quick success with these two than you are with the others. And in any kind of organizing, getting people together, getting them to learn how to work with each other, and getting some early success that shows them and shows the world that they can be effective is important. So my suggestion would be to start with your community for these two things: the asking your leaders their community leaders to speak out, and asking the police chiefs and sheriffs to order the post-hate crimes training. In the case of the latter, well, actually in the case of either, if they don't respond, if you can't get your mayor to do anything, the police chief won't order the training, then that could go into those asks could go into the larger coalition, the larger community effort that I'm suggesting that you try with these other two things that are on the screen now. You don't have to. Everybody has some idea of, and probably has done some work with other community groups. You can go back to the one before that, please. We're one step ahead of ourselves in this slide. So that's good. So you know who some of your community groups are. There are some obvious ones to reach out to. The state NAACP has been solid on all of this stuff. So reaching out to your local NAACP branches is an obvious place to start. LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens, has been solid. So if you have a LULAC affiliate or chapter there. The ARC, my organization, and the United Cerebral Palsy have been solid. You can reach out to them. And in all these, they may or may not know that their state organization has been solidly behind this, and you can tell them that, and they will contact us. I would not rely on the state organizations to contact their local chapters and affiliates. I would do that yourselves, just because you're there, we're not, and every state organization is just as overwhelmed as everybody else, and may well not be as quick as you can be in contacting these organizations. Equality California, the main LGBTQ lobby, has been a solid supporter of all this. So reaching out to gay and lesbian and trans organizations and mentioning to them that Equality California is on board with all this is another possible thing you can do. If you have any Garwaras, the Sikh coalition is solid on this, and they might be able to tell you whether they have contacts at your particular local Gurdwara. Jewish organizations, obviously. Okay, now we can go on to the next one. In the legislature, Cal-APABA is one of 35 organizations that are asking Assemblyman Jesse Gabriel to accept amendments to a bill of his, AB 75, that would require every law enforcement agency to adopt the post-model hate crimes policy that I talked about before. It's semi-required now. Whenever they amend their policy, they have to adopt the whole post policy. Whether they actually follow that or not, I don't know. But it's basically voluntary. We have a bill. We have amendments that we're asking Mr. Gabriel to accept to his bill that would require every law enforcement agency to do that. That would make a huge difference. And the amendments also spell out that post is supposed to expand the policy to be much more detailed about how to recognize any hate crimes with specific examples, such as whenever the existing facts and circumstances indicate that a particular crime is likely to be a hate crime. Whether or not there's any evidence yet that it is a hate crime, the law enforcement agency would be required, the officer on the spot would be required to classify it as a suspected hate crime and do an initial investigation to determine whether there's evidence of bias. They will not find evidence in every case. They will find it in other cases, but they will certainly never find it if they don't look for it. So those are the kinds of things that we're asking Mr. Gabriel to put into his bill. Let me say that we need support on that ask. At the end of these slides is my email address. If your organization is interested in joining with the now 35 other organizations that are asking Mr. Gabriel to add those amendments, please email me and I'll get you some information on it. Okay, go on, please. These are other bills that are pending in the legislature. I would ask you to look at them, decide whether you think they're good bills, and if so, support them. You can do that in two ways. One way is to contact the author, the legislator who's introducing it, and say, our group supports this bill. What can we do to help? And they'll probably give you a template letter that you can send. The other is work with your statewide organizations. I would, on all of these, any statewide or nationwide efforts, I'd suggest you stay in close touch with Cal-APABA and any other statewide organizations. And when they ask you to do something, evaluate, of course, whether you agree, whether you think that's the right thing to do. And if you do, then do it. That's part of the way that mobilizing support throughout the state and actually influencing legislation works. I guess I could say a few words about these bills. Even 226 by Simon and Cooper is a penalty increase bill. Penalty increase bills don't do very well in the legislature these days. I think the odds against this one are pretty long. You may or may not want to support it. 228 by Mr. Lackey is not exactly a penalty increase bill, but it's close enough to it that it probably also doesn't have much chance, but please take a look at it and see if you support it or not. 567 by Submember Matsuuchi is a very good one in my opinion. It creates a statewide hate crimes report hotline. This is important for reasons including that there are a lot of people who are uncomfortable calling their local police department. If they have a statewide hotline that they know is particularly dedicated to hate crimes, the experience in other states, and the experience in California in the months after 9/11, when the state set up a hotline for, particularly for anti-Islamic hate crimes, is that people will call that number and will get a response. We'll be able to arrest some people we might not otherwise be able to arrest. We'll be able to give support to victims that we might not otherwise be able to give support to, and we'll certainly gather data. 600, Mr. Arambula's bill would expand the definition of a hate crime to include immigrant status, actual or perceived immigrant status, as a part of the protected characteristic of nationality. SB, this is an SB 764 by Mr. Umberg, is a comprehensive bill that has to do with terrorism and hate crimes, mostly terrorism. If you want to take a look at it and see if there's anything in there that you support, that would be good. There's a budget, the Budget Act amendment that Mr. Gabriel is pushing that would allocate $50 million for security for community facilities. If you're going to be asking him to amend his bill to do what we're asking him to do, you might also ask him how you can support his budget ask. The last one I call the mystery bill because I can't talk about it very much. There is a legislator who is considering introducing a bill, using an existing bill and putting some new language into it, to expand the definition of hate crime in several ways that would make prosecutions easier. The one, I won't go into it in any detail, but the one way is, well, under current law, for a crime, for anything to be a hate crime, it takes two things. One is it takes a crime. If it's not a crime, it's not a hate crime. The other is it has to be a proven evidence of bias. And there's a broad definition of what bias is, but it's still very hard to prove a hate crime because you have to prove what's in somebody's head. So it's hard to prove. It's intended to be hard to prove, but it could be easier if the definition of bias included discriminatory selection. So that, for example, if a particular suspect perpetrator commits a series of crimes against API persons in particular, no one else, just API persons, and he or she hasn't used the words of bias, they just committed the crimes, but that would be discriminatory selection, and that could be classified as a hate crime. Okay, next. Finally, some of the groups in the network that I coordinate are going to be writing to our new State Attorney General, who, in case anyone doesn't know, is none other than our own Assemblyman Banta, asking him to take more leadership in hate crimes. Attorney General Becerra took a lot of leadership, but we want more, and we want him to meet with us regularly to talk about what he's doing and what we think more he should be doing and what he thinks we should be doing. So we're working on a letter. We're going to be circulating it to organizations. If you're interested, if your organization is interested in signing on, please let me know. And for any of these things, the last slide gives my email address. Please feel free to write me. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Greg. That was really a lot of information in those 5 short slides. And I think there's a lot of great suggestions that you've made. And I encourage folks, these are probably some suggestions that are outside of people's comfort levels, right? Comfort zones, because we're not used to contacting sheriffs or, these people in our community, our legislators. People are probably not very comfortable contacting them. But I think now is the time for us to step out of our comfort zone and to take some of these actions. So please contact Greg if you're interested at all in any of his suggestions, or just want to talk about some of these ideas to see what even you or your community organizations can do. So next, Jessica, I'd like to talk to you about how folks can support Compassion in Oakland.
Just let me add, don't be surprised if it takes me a while to get back to you.
Thanks, Greg.
All right. So yeah, with Compassion in Oakland, there's a lot of ways that you can help out. I know that a lot of you might not live in the Bay Area or are close to Oakland. So we have a lot of different opportunities that you don't physically have to be present in Oakland to volunteer. So I'll go through a lot of the things that we're looking for or need help with. First thing would be, yes, volunteering. If you're going to volunteer, we ask that you have a recent negative COVID-19 test or a recent vaccine, or not recent, but just you've been vaccinated. And when you volunteer with us, we also ask for a lot of things from you. Actually, it ends up being a really great time to talk about just being Asian American and how the attacks have really affected you. And we've been finding that it's been a really great time of healing, not just being able to walk with the elderly, but it's a time for healing in terms of just community wise. We have volunteers from all over the place of different ethnic and racial background, and also different ages. So it's been really great to hear these conversations that are happening. So come out and have some conversations with us and the volunteers. And it's really great to see how the community has responded, because the community has been in Chinatown mainly elderly individuals, because a lot of the younger generation, like ourselves, have really moved out of Chinatowns and those kind of enclaves. So they love to see a younger generation out on the streets caring for them, showing that we see their pain and see their fear. So it's really great to see that. And then the other thing that you get from volunteering is we ask that you visit businesses, because a lot of the businesses have been hurt from COVID. So it's a great time for people to pick up, something to eat, a boba, whatever. So volunteering has a lot of benefits and we do a lot of things within the volunteer time. And we also have time to talk about, at the end, we talk about, how we've been doing in terms of mental health wise. We're also looking for specific volunteers. And on our website, you'll see under Get Involved and under Volunteering, we're looking for people to do kind of like um, I guess, volunteer work. So you can look at that. We're looking for certain different kind of social media managers, other things like that. We're also looking to expand. I know someone was asking about starting up in Sacramento. We just started off in a Compassion in San Gabriel Valley, which is in SoCal. They are live now, and you can volunteer down there if you're in that area. We also are working on an app that would help us to also expand. So if you have experience with app making, and the other thing that we're really concerned about is, and I think where a lot of people might be able to help, is we're trying to obviously stay safe and make sure that our volunteers are safe. So we're looking into background checks and those kind of liabilities that might come up later on, and especially as we expand. So those are some ways that definitely people can help us out. We also are taking donations. We have a fiscal sponsor. So if you're able to do that, that would be great as well.
Great. Thank you, Jessica. So if folks want to volunteer with you, with your organization, and they're in other cities or even in other states, what's the best way to go about contacting you or your organization?
Yeah, we have actually a form on our website if you would like to bring compassion to your city. And we're gathering a list of cities that would like to organize and start something in their city similar to Compassion in Oakland.
Great. And your website is compassioninoakland.org?
Correct. Yeah. And they can definitely email me as well. I can put the email in the chat box.
Great. Thank you so much. Annie, what can folks do to coordinate with the DA's offices or with law enforcement?
Well, I think one of the things that I would like to see more of is to have the community show support actually for that hate crimes be prosecuted, and to continue to show support that hate crimes be prosecuted. What I'm concerned about is this issue, while we have momentum, I don't want to see this issue, and I don't think anyone wants to see this issue become just a trending moment. So that we all know that, and I know this, that even though there has been a surge of attacks and assault against members of the API community, in particular elders, the assault and the attacks against Asians and the racist attacks have been ongoing. And it's not, I think lately it's been much more, we see more violent attacks, but every time around Chinese New Year, we see, and this has been years gone, where we see an increase of robberies committed against members of the Asian community. And in part because it's opportunistic, they've if the word's gotten out that many Asians carry cash, particularly the elderly. And so our office has been, actually, me personally too, we've been doing a lot of education in the community to discuss ways to improve, to protect themselves and public safety. So some of the things I think that on an individual level that it's important to do is that we do need more resources in terms of not necessarily more police, but I think we do need some resources in terms of helping getting the word out and reaching the community. And one of the things that they can do is go to the city council hearings for your city. Very few people go there. And I've attended many of those. And I guarantee you that the city council members will hear you. They do pay attention. And so I think it helps getting, even the city council can adopt a resolution, maybe similar to even though maybe symbolic, but it's similar to what President Biden did to acknowledge that there is this anti-Asian hate, and to acknowledge that and to denounce it. It shouldn't be just Oakland, and it shouldn't be just Chinatown. We have Asians living everywhere throughout Alameda County, throughout the state, throughout Contra Costa County, throughout all the neighboring counties, the Bay Area. And it's everywhere throughout the state. And so I will also urge Governor Newsom to do something like that as well. I know that it's been denounced in the news, but it shouldn't be just in the news. I would like to see something actually adopted, and so that it is not just a momentary trending issue.
So Annie, there is a question from the audience. It says, is there data showing that pushing hate crime enhancements or increasing criminal penalties is effective? It doesn't seem to deter hate activity and runs contrary to current racial justice efforts.
Well, I don't know if there's actually data to show that increasing penalty shows deterrence in terms of hate crime. I do know this, that if you reduce penalty, if you make the crimes less severe with less punishment, that will directly harm our community. And there is legislation right now that is trying to do that. And so it's legislation SB 82, which is trying to do that, to reduce the penalty for many of these crimes that are being perpetrated against members of our community. Like I'm the poor man who was robbed in San Francisco in the laundromat, where 3 people attacked him and then dragged him, and they want to make that into a petty theft because he didn't suffer a great bodily injury. That's not right.
There's another question from the audience for Mr. DeGier, for Greg. And it says, many of Mr. DeGier's suggestions seem geared towards community organizers. Is it equally effective for individual community members to take the same type of steps?
Can you hear me? I missed the last. Okay, good. It's both are important, but organizations are more important. Both because they can speak in the name of more people, and because they can organize individuals for that kind of individual advocacy. So I would say both. But if you're not a member of an organization, join one.
So in your opinion, Greg, it would be more effective to speak to these, people in the community as a community group. I think we might be having some technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Okay, you're back. So you're recommending working with community groups, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, great. So inevitably, a new issue will come up and the media will stop reporting on anti-Asian hate crimes. And it's kind of what Annie talked about earlier, right? And these horrible incidents will start fading from people's memories. So when this happens, do you have any suggestions on how we can keep the momentum going?
Stay organized. Yeah, continue to participate in your community organizations. I think that the best ideological approach was so keep trying. If it's nonviolent, it's not likely to do any harm, and you'll certainly learn from it. Make mistakes, exercise bad judgment. Got it.
Yeah, we did. Annie or Jess, do you have any suggestions on what people can do to keep the momentum going and just keep working at this even after the media stops reporting on it?
I think it's important to continue to use our voice in any way, in any forum that we can. I think we also need to start at home with the education of our children and with our children's friends, with our friends. And one of the things that I noticed that I have friends, many friends who are not Asian, would ask, what can they do? What can we do to help? They sometimes feel almost paralyzed when they see so much of this ongoing that they seem almost paralyzed about what they can do without wanting to offend anyone or be presumptuous. I think once all the marching is done, once all the rallying is done, the conversation needs to continue. I think it's important to continue to have this conversation, the narrative in the schools. I saw the other day that Jay Leno finally apologized for all the racist jokes that he made in the past. And he said that the reason he made those jokes was because he didn't realize how that it was so offensive. He didn't realize it was racist. I think one of the problems that Asian Americans constantly experience is that racism against us for some reason is tolerated. Racism against us is allowed. We have to speak up and say no. Every time there is a racist comment about the foods we eat, about our eyes, about our accents, about anything that has to do with our culture and who we are, we have to say, no, that's not all right. It is not just a matter of free speech. It is not a matter of that we're too sensitive. We have to speak up all the time. And we cannot be afraid, and that's part of our culture too, is to be afraid of we're making waves. So We have to make waves.
Yeah. I agree with Annie, so much, 100%. And I think that, for myself, this is something really, honestly, very new. I started this, a month and a half ago, and it's been quite a journey and experience, and just the conversations that I'm having with, my colleagues and volunteers that, we never had, or I at least never had growing up, is, what does it mean to be an Asian American? And what does that mean to have your voice and exercise that voice? And those conversations that we can have with each other are so important, even though they seem so small, and it could be just a small comment. But it's huge in the way that maybe it plants a seed in someone's mind, or in our own minds, and on our own views, and recognizing that, we're here in this country, we have the same rights as every other person to use that voice. And that's something that, like I said, is, for me, I'm still discovering, and I'm still trying to figure out. And I think that each one of us has that power to do it. Just a month and a half ago, I was figuring out what to watch on Netflix, and now I'm here. So it's been amazing, and I think anyone, if I can do it, then anyone can, and figure that out, and figure out their voice.
Greg, we're going to wrap it up soon, but we had some technical difficulties with you earlier. So did you want to just kind of restate what you were saying? You were cut off several times.
When I was talking about what to do in the future and after the media goes away, or before that?
Yeah, really just what to keep,
or both.
How to keep the momentum going. Just a couple. Yeah.
I can't hear. I can't hear now. I'm sorry.
Okay. I think Greg might still be having. Yes, we can hear you.
Concerning what to do in the future is stay active, stay organized. If you're a member of a group, stay in the group, or if you don't like the group, try something. FDR's motto was, we'll try something. If it doesn't work, we'll do something else. Make mistakes, use bad judgment, and learn from it. The good judgment is a result of experience. Experience is a result of bad judgment. Keep at it.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm glad that we were at least able to hear a little bit more of what he was saying before he got cut off the first time. I really want to thank Annie, Greg, and Jessica for being here with us today. What is happening in our community is absolutely atrocious, and there are a lot of underlying reasons that are not going to be fixed overnight. However, there are actions each of us can take. We can report these incidents, have difficult conversations with family, friends, strangers, talk to your elected officials, email Greg, volunteer with community organizations. There's a lot that we can continue to do. APA versus Hate is seeking attorneys across the country to volunteer for its pro bono referral panel. Please sign up at the website that's scrolling at the bottom of your screen, or you can contact us at Cal-APABA@gmail.com. I also encourage you to donate at bit.ly/Cal-APABA. 100% of the proceeds will go to support Stop AAPI Hate and API legal outreach. Our fourth session in the series will be at noon on Thursday, April 1st. We will be discussing where APAs fit in today's diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation. If you are already registered for our conference, you do not need to register again. You will automatically receive a link to the next panel. Thank you all for joining us today. Take care and stay safe.